This is the Hard Rockology Show. I'm your host, Matt, with my co-host, Jason, today.
Hey.
Yeah, how you doing, Jason?
Not too bad, man.
And we just heard a brand new track off the brand new Winery Dogs album, Elevate, the brand new single from that album. Great new supergroup with Billy Sheehan on bass, Mike Portnoy on drums, and the final piece, I think the most important piece of the puzzle, guitarist, vocalist, Richie Kotzen. Richie Kotzen join us on the phone right now. How you doing, Richie?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
No problems, man. Now, I have to ask you, the response from this album, you're getting accolades from the critics, from the fans alike. You're doing sold-out shows. I know you just came back, I believe, from Japan and stuff, and did some shows on the East Coast here in the States, also sold out as well. Are you surprised of the reaction and the response that you're getting from this album?
Yeah, I really am. I got to be honest. I knew we made a cool record, and I was excited about it, and I was impressed with what Billy and Mike played on the record, but I certainly didn't expect it to connect with as many people as it has. We were on the road, we were out of the country, and an email came in that we debuted on the Billboard Top 200 at 27, and there was some other information about a rock chart on Billboard where we were at 5, and iTunes, there was a number 2 on one of their charts, and I was like, really? Is somebody pulling my leg? Not to discredit the music, because I think it's a great record, but no, I wasn't expecting that reaction at all. I'm very surprised and, of course, happy about it.
Now, I know a lot of our fans out there will remember you from Poison. I know you replaced CeCe DeVille on an album and also a tour there as well. And then Paul Gilbert from Mr. Big replaced him as well for a couple albums. So, those are 2 good guitar players that you replaced and 2 really big bands at the time when you replaced them. But after Mr. Big pretty much closed up shop, you pretty much went back to your solo material, and you really haven't been in a band, so to speak, for the past 10 years. Now, I'm just going to ask this question to give our fans out there some perspective, okay? You have the Rolling Stones. Since their inception, they've released about 24, 25 albums. And another band, Rush, they've released close to 20 albums. Now, looking at your solo material, just your solo material in and of itself since the late 80s till now, you've released well over 20 albums. And that's not including your compilations and all the other stuff that you've done. What was it like to sit there after 10 years, 20-some-odd solo albums, to sit there and go back to a group setting like the Winery Dogs? What happened to get you that excited to join this band?
Well, first of all, I really don't look at it like I'm joining a band, because it's just something that started out from nothing. And the reality is I have a pattern, so to speak. I make a record and I tour. And so that cycle might last me a year and a half. So if you look at my history, every year or so, I put out a record and then I tour on it. And this timing just worked out such that I really just put this in front of what would have been my follow-up album to 24 Hours. So the timing was great, because I really was just kind of getting back into a writing mode. So I ended up getting together with Billy and Mike and writing some songs with them, and then I played them some songs that I had already written that would have ended up on my next record had I not gotten together with them. So really this is just kind of sliding right into what would have been my next record. So the timing, I think, is really what made it work. It's just perfect timing.
Now, timing-wise, how exactly did the 3 of you guys get together? I've heard this story, but I figured I'll ask you here, and you could go ahead and tell our listeners. How exactly did you wind up joining Billy and Mike to form Winery Dogs?
Well, I was approached by Eddie Trunk, and he told me that they were looking to do a project together, and they wanted to do like a vocal-driven rock thing, but they were really interested in playing in a power trio. So what they were looking for was someone who can sing and play the guitar. And so Eddie has been a supporter of mine for a long time, so he suggested me, and Mike Portnoy called me, and we decided to get together. It was really that simple.
Now, you mentioned previously that you had some demos and some tracks that would have made it onto your next solo album. Now, one of my favorite tracks on the album, I'm No Angel. I mean, I know a little bit of the history of this particular song, and I know originally the way you had the original demos, this song kind of morphed into a couple different tracks. So can you go ahead and explain that particular track and those demos and what that song eventually became?
Yeah, sure. I'm No Angel is a song that I had written prior to the band coming together. It became a Winery Dog song. It was one of the songs that I played the guys when we were looking for extra tracks. We had written 8 together out of jamming, and then to round the record out, I started basically pitching songs, and that was one of them that I pitched. It was originally called Misfortune. That was the title that I had for the song, and Billy had championed to change the title to I'm No Angel, so I went along with that. But that song, actually, an interesting story that's connected to that song, and it ties into the song Elevate. There's a demo recording of that riff of I'm No Angel with the chorus of Elevate. So before I settled on the chorus that is on the record now, I had a version with the Elevate chorus, and it kind of went from halftime to double time, and I never really liked it, but that was my first attempt, and then I scratched that and wrote the chorus that's on the song now. So the song is pretty much the way it was. The funny thing is that that Elevate chorus, I was not planning on doing anything with it, but Mike Portnoy heard that chorus and suggested that we use that on another piece of music that I had started to write that I didn't finish, which was the opening riff and the verse to Elevate. I had a whole other chorus written to that without lyrics. And he came in one day and said, man, let's try to put those two together. That would be one cool song. And so we worked at it, and Billy and I sat down and rearranged some of the voicings for the guitar and bass, and that's actually how the song Elevate became what it is. And it's funny because I would have never used that chorus. I would have never put the song out, and now suddenly that became our lead track. So it's interesting what happens when you get some other voices in the room, kind of throwing out opinions.
Yeah, and another track I want to ask you as well. I mean, and that's a great story, and in my opinion, those are probably two of the best tracks on that album. I mean, the whole album's phenomenal, but those two tracks really stand out, at least the first time listening through that album. Now, another track on the album, You Saved Me, and another little tidbit of information, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the songs, if not all of the songs that you basically have sung on before, you primarily had written the lyrics. Now, is it true that You Saved Me, the lyrics on that particular song, you didn't write, and that was one of the first songs in years that you actually had to sing somebody else's lyrics?
I think that's, aside from doing a cover song, I think that's the only time I've ever done that, where someone wrote lyrics and I actually sang them. But I can't name one song that I've ever done that on a record. I mean, other than, if I do a cover song, I did a cover of Shapes of Things, so that's different. But yeah, that's an accurate statement. That song, the bass line, is something that Billy was messing around with, and then in the process we came up with whatever chord progression we used for the chorus, and there were some melodies thrown around that we documented. But that song was kind of sitting on the back burner. I remember I never did anything more with it other than that initial time when we were jamming on it, and then as I was working up vocals for the other songs we did, Mike Portnoy sent me a message saying, hey, man, I've got some ideas for this. Do you mind if I give it a shot? And, of course, I said, no, it's perfect, actually, because I haven't really dealt with that yet. And so he came up with the lyrics, which were very cool, and some cool melodies that he came up with, and it worked out. And a lot of people really liked that song on the record. So it was kind of an interesting experiment for me to do that as well.
Now, one of the things that a lot of bands are doing now is they're actually going off to wherever it is that they write their songs and stuff, and then going in and sending all their parts to the songs, and then the songs are finally getting back and mixed together, I guess you could say. Now, from what I understand, the band in of itself said, you know what, we're not going to do this. We're going to sit there and do this old school, I guess you could say, like it was done in the 70s, 80s, and the 60s. We're just going to go into the studio and write these songs. Is that primarily how this whole album came together? You guys just getting together and just jamming and putting stuff together?
Well, there's two processes to how the album was made. First of all, how it was written. Initially was us getting in the room and playing together. That's correct. And we would jam, throw ideas around, and then we would record what we did. And I believe 8 of the songs that are on the record were done that way. And then later, what we did was, I believe Billy and Mike actually left town because they had another project. So I kind of sat with the demos for a while and just messed around with some lyrics and some vocals and that sort of thing, and ended up finishing like 7 of them. And I would send them to the guys, via email. Hey, what do you think? And I get a couple suggestions here or there. We'll try this, try that, and so forth. And that's really how the majority of the record was written. And then the remainder of the record, like I said before, there were songs that I had already started, some that were finished, like Desire or whichever ones. And I kind of was pitching songs to the guys, and I was saying, look, let's look through some of this stuff because it's just sitting on the hard drive. And so they picked out 4 or 5 songs that they really liked, and we ended up using those as well. And then when we recorded the record, we set up in a completely different format than we did when we were writing. Because when we were writing this stuff, Mike was using my drum set, and there was only a couple of mics in the room. Obviously, to do the record, we wanted to get the best sound we could, so Mike brought his drums in, we set that up, and we would just really focus the first 2 weeks on getting the best performances we could out of the drums. And then from there, we overdubbed the rest of the record. And that was really the process.
Now, one of the tracks, and Jason would agree with me, The Other Side, which is one of my favorite tracks, and Jason's as well. It's a great song, got a good melody to it as well, but then at the end of the song, it's almost like you guys are going into a jam session. And part of what I get from this album and the playing on this album, it's almost like there's a jam session going on, that there's parts of songs where at any particular moment, Billy might just kick in and start jamming and doing some stuff. Mike doing the same thing on the drums with some interesting fills and some aggressions and everything else. So, I mean, is that kind of like what it was like in the studio? And like I said...
Yeah, you can hear that, too. And, especially not only on that song, but a good example of that is a song called Not Hopeless. And there was a section in there where Billy and Mike just pretty much went off on a tangent, and played some really cool stuff. And I remember when it came time for me to do my guitar parts, hearing that, thinking, wow, that would be really cool to double some of that. And I ended up doubling the last half, and what it created was this whole ensemble-type effect. I mean, it really sounds like we sat there for hours with the notation paper and wrote out some kind of orchestrated, section of music. And the reality was, it just came out of Billy just being Billy and doing what he does, and me thinking, what, this is really cool, let me double it, and vice versa. There were some songs where I had some kind of crazy lines, and then Billy came in and doubled them. So a lot of that stuff really did happen out of one of us doing something crazy and the other one saying, hey, let me try to copy that and see if we can make it more of something that we're doing together.
Yeah, one of the things I want to be honest with you. We've been doing the show for a while now, and my brother said, "Hey, we got another supergroup," and for me, I'm really tired of the word supergroup and how it's thrown around out there, just because a bunch of musicians get together and they were in previous bands and such. It doesn't warrant them being a supergroup. So I was extremely skeptical about Winery Dogs when he first told me. I mean, yeah, I figured as a whole, all 3 of you guys are phenomenal musicians. I mean, but when I finally had a chance to hear this particular album, I will say this, it definitely is a supergroup. I mean, you guys are all, masters of your instruments. I mean, you got Billy, phenomenal bass player, Mike on drums, probably one of the best drummers out there right now, and of course you on guitar, one of the best guitarists as well. And one of the things that surprised me as well is your vocals as well. I mean, it comes across, phenomenal as well. So I have to say this, Black Country Communion was, in my opinion, probably one of the last supergroups, and they're no longer together. And I'm going to sit there and say I think the Winery Dogs can easily step in there and be that next supergroup.
Well, thank you. That's really cool of you.
They definitely qualify, Matt.
Oh, hell yeah,
I
they
read
qualify.
the Wikipedia description of what a supergroup is, and this group here certainly falls within that description.
Well, Richie, I guess I'll ask you. I mean, you've heard the word supergroup thrown out there and all that. When they first said supergroup Winery Dogs, what was your thoughts on that? I mean, what do you think about this?
Yeah, would you call yourself a supergroup?
No, that's what I was going to say. You got to realize we don't, we're not labeling ourselves anything. It's like I've known Billy, for over 20 years, and one of the first people I met when I moved to L.A. and we became friends. So like, even it's like in our minds we're just like three guys that are playing together. Now, most of those labels, are labels that other people come up with. I mean, grunge, when that movement happened, these guys didn't go and say, all right, we're going to start this band and call it grunge. This is something that happens. People need to call something by a label. So, that's where that comes from. I don't care what they call it because it doesn't really, I'm not on that side of the fence. I'm in the studio writing, I'm on the stage performing. It's not up to me to call it something. It's the Winery Dogs. It's a band, So that's kind of how we look at it, but I guess people can kind of say whatever they like.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and take one of your quotes that I pulled off of an interview that you did. And this is in regards to how you write songs and how you put songs together. And you basically say, the song always comes down to the vocals, it's the lyric, and the melody. Can you go ahead and explain that a little bit more?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to look at it this way. Now, I'm talking about the kind of music that I'm involved in. Now, if I was making instrumental music or some other format, then, of course, it might be a different scenario. But the song is the melody. That's the song. When you sing Happy Birthday, you're not singing a chord progression. You're singing the melody. And there's a lot of different chords you can play under Happy Birthday. But in the end, when you sing the song, you're singing the melody. And that does transcend into pretty much every other style. Any song you can think of, when you sing it, you're singing the melody. Now, in addition to the melody, in the kind of music that we're playing, there's lyrics. So you're singing the melody and the lyrics. And obviously I'm not saying this is the way it is, but this is just the way what I believe, and a lot of people in my position believe, that's the song. It's the voice, in this case, because that's the lead instrument. Now, if it was instrumental music, it might be the saxophone or whatever instrument's playing the melody. But here it's the voice, and it's the words. And everything else is built around that. And in my experience in writing, usually what happens is once you have the melody, then you also that also dictates the drum beat. At least for me, when I write a song, the minute I have the melody, I hear the rhythm, and so it starts with the melody, and then the next thing in line is whatever the rhythm is, and that's the drums or the percussion or that whatever's playing that. It would be the drum kit or percussion, whatever that is. So that's the core of what it is, and then everything else is interchangeable. Now that's not to discredit writing a guitar riff because that's strong as well. But if you look at a song off of our record, like I'm No Angel, for example, that's a pretty interesting guitar riff by riff standards. It's melodic, it's stylized, but in the end of the day, really what you're hearing is the melody. And when the vocal comes in, it's basically singing the riff. So that still comes down to the melody. I think that's kind of what I meant. Hopefully I explained that well.
No, you explained it well. And also, that being said, after explaining that, is there any particular equipment or guitar that you currently use, or that's your favorite type of guitar to play? Because you get some phenomenal sound on this album. So are you currently endorsed by anybody, or do you endorse any guitars or anything out there right now?
Yes, I endorse Fender. I have a signature model Telecaster that Fender sells, so that is the guitar that I play. So if anyone's curious about what I'm playing, they can actually go to Sam Ash or Guitar Center or any of these places that sell Fender guitars, and if they don't have the guitar in stock, you can order it. And I've had the signature model with Fender for quite some time. It hasn't always been available in the United States until recently. This past year, they made it global, so now everyone can get the guitar. But that's the guitar I play. The guitar that I'm endorsing is the one that I actually use on the record.
All right, why don't we go ahead and take a quick break from talking with Richie and play another track off the Winery Dogs' debut album. This is We Are One. You're hearing it here on the Hard Rockology Show.